Thanks to Steph. You should now be able to see the screen and see the slideshow. We'll go through the slides first, and then I'll actually go into the product, and we'll start posting some transactions through there to show you how it works. So, what is Advanced VAT? It's a module originally written in 1997 by Nolan Business Solutions to actually track and report VAT. Specifically around the different methods of recovery, such as standard recovery, partial and exempt VAT recovery. For those of you not-for-profit and professional organizations will know that not all your VAT purchases are recoverable, and they're recoverable either at a fixed or a variable percentage, and we'll go through examples of those today. Standard Dynamics VAT uses items and suppliers' addresses to calculate VAT. So in the standard system, we'll set up a couple of tax detail IDs, and the tax detail ID will tell the system the VAT percentage that is to be applied. So on putting on an invoice for £100, it will use a tax detail as defined by the item that we're purchasing and the supplier we're purchasing it from to work out whether the VAT percentage that should be applied to that purchase. And if that's 20%, it will calculate the 20% and put that 20% on your VAT report at the end of the quarter. Advanced VAT turns that on its head a bit, in that Advanced VAT is able to calculate the VAT at account code level. And this is because we recognize that in organizations that will use Advanced VAT, it's not the supplier, it's not the item that dictates the VAT recovery. It's actually the department, the cost center, maybe the project, the area of the business that we're purchasing those items for. So if we're purchasing items for a department, that means that all those items are to be partially recovered. We can set that up at the general ledger account code level to say anything that posts to these general ledger accounts gets a partial VAT treatment. Anything that is posted to another maybe trading department would get standard VAT. So that's really the difference between standard VAT and our Nolan Business Solutions Advanced VAT. Just briefly, the features: we can code the VAT at distribution line level. So for each distribution line, you can specify the tax treatment that's to be allocated for that. So it may be that a purchase invoices come in for some goods, some relate to one cost center, some goods relate to another cost center. The system will automatically split the tax treatment between those depending on the accounts that you're posting to. Each VAT coding can be non-recoverable, fully recoverable, or partially recoverable. And that partially recoverable element can be fixed or a variable percentage. So do we know how much of the VAT at the time of putting the invoice on, do we know how much we can recover? Or is it a variable percentage which we only know at the end of the quarter? And the system will cater for both of those types of scenarios. There's a routine for partial recovered processing on posted invoices where the rate is not known in advance. Okay. The features that we'll be looking at relate to Dynamics GP 2013, but also if your purchase orders are coming in from products like eRequest, that's also written by Nolan Business Solutions, I can show you how the system caters for the advanced VAT processing when it's also taking purchase orders in from external systems such as eRequest. We track any changes that your users might make, so if by default a transaction should be partially recovered and the user needs to change that to non-recoverable, we require change notification on that, and we can track those changes. We have an inquiry window, which enables you to see the VAT recovered on each individual transaction. And we also provide a reconciliation report. That reconciliation report allows you at any time in the period to have a look at what your VAT recovery element is and see how those transactions are doing in line with what you're processing in your departments. So we'll be looking at GP 2013, but it does work with any version of Dynamics. Having written the product back in 2007, it works with versions going back. But obviously, as part of our development process inside Dynamics, new features are only written into GP 2010 and GP 2013 versions. So the new features I'll show you won't be in version 8, 9, and in some cases also not in version 10 of the product. So let's go and have a look at what Advanced VAT looks like. Here I am in my Dynamics GP 2013, and what we're going to be doing first is just taking a quick look at the setup. So if we go to my administration pages and we have a look at the tax detail setup, we'll see that I've set up a couple of tax details here. So my first tax detail I've called P for purchases, AV advanced VAT, fully recoverable at 20%. You can see it's purchases tax type, and the percentage that we're going to be charged by our supplier is 20%. Looking at the options window, which is options button, which is a button put on by Advanced VAT, we can see this is where we specify the tax treatment. So the tax treatment in this case is fully recoverable. Next tax treatment I put on is purchases advanced VAT non-recoverable, and we can see the supplier is still going to charge us 20%. But under the options, we specified that none of that tax is recoverable, it's all non-recoverable tax. Third one is partial recoverable at a fixed percentage. The supplier is going to still charge us 20% on the purchase, and I've put here that we can recover 5% of that 20%. How we represent that inside the options is that we say it's a partial recoverable fixed percentage, and down at the bottom here that the recovery rate is 5%. That can be changed, and there's processes around the change of those VAT detail IDs, whether you change those and put them in, create a new tax detail, or whether you change that percentage. Our consultants can help you with those options. The final tax detail ID is the partial advanced VAT, partial recoverable at a variable percentage. 20% is what the supplier is going to charge us, and I've notated it's got an X% here because we don't know how much, when we're putting the invoice on, we're going to recover. Look at the options, we can see I've set that up as partial recoverable to variable percentage, and I've set it as net. So with the net option, we're going to treat the invoice. Let's go back there. Tax detail options here. We're going to treat the invoice initially as fully recoverable. That's fully recoverable entry. And then we're going to extract from the fully recoverable VAT the amount that is non-recoverable. If we set that to gross, what the system would do is on entry treat the whole invoice as non-recoverable and would post the recoverable portion back into the original expense account on recovery. Okay, so to illustrate that, we'll go and put on a transaction. Those transactions will use general ledger codes that I've set up to use those tax details. So let's go to purchasing, and we'll go and put on a purchase ledger transaction. So you'll see immediately that the screen's changed from the standard. We've set all the areas inside the system where you normally can enter in values. We've set those to read only. We're going to maintain the values inside those fields based on the values you enter down here, which is actually a representation of what is currently under your distribution button. So we've got an invoice. I'm going to say this is my miscellaneous purchases invoice. I'm going to put into a batch, which is 1006 for today. And my supplier, I'm going to use something like my American charge card supplier with a document number of charge card June 2014. Okay, so what have I spent money on, or that this invoice is coming for? If I use account 100-6140-00, this is my hardware account. You'll see on entering that account, it's defaulted in immediately that anything that goes to that account is fully recoverable. So if I say this is a HP laptop I'm buying for £100, it calculates 20% of the VAT, shows me 20%, and in the totals here, it shows me that my net purchases is 100, my VAT, recoverable VAT is £20, the total invoice value is 120. Okay. If I drill down onto the account, just briefly, you'll see in my account maintenance window here, I've set up this account as taxable and to use the fully recoverable account. Next account I'm going to use is my 100-6140. You'll see I've set that up as taxable as well, with partial recoverable fixed. So go back to my transaction, and I bought some software. So this is Windows 8, also £100. You see the tax details appeared here. So it calculates 20% VAT that I'm being charged by the supplier. What we're seeing now inside the totals is that it's put £119. It's added that to the previous net. So that is my net purchase on this transaction. Remember, £20 VAT got charged, but only 5% of that was recoverable. That's basically one pound. So it's put £1, added £1 to the net, to the VAT down here. Okay, the next line, 100-6150. This is some supplies. I'll say this is a carry case for £100, and this one is partial recoverable variable. I said earlier on that we'd set that up to be net, so we'll treat it as fully recoverable in the first instance, and we'll extract anything that is non-recoverable later. So systems, the supplies charges us 20%, and it's actually put the whole £20 into the total tax that we're going to recover because we said net. Finally, we're going to have a Windows PC magazine in here, £100, and this is non-recoverable. So the whole 120 will be added into the purchases account, and we'll get £439 as our net purchase, £41 as our recoverable VAT at this point of the £80 that suppliers charged us. I like looking at the edit list at this point because it actually gives us a good view of this transaction. So if I go and have a look at the edit list, we can see here £100 net posted to the hardware, fully recoverable, 119 to the partial recoverable fixed, where we can only recover 5%, £100 posted to the partial recoverable variable, because we're posting net, and £120 posted to the non-recoverable account. The VAT collected, or the amount of VAT that we know that we can recover, is £21, and the amount of VAT that we're not sure how much we can recover yet is posted to a pot account down here. Total purchase ledger control 480, and at the bottom we can see that we also give you a tax detail distribution, so you can see all the different tax details we're posting to, the amount of VAT, the original VAT, the amount we're going to recover, and therefore the recoverable tax percentage. It's a recoverable tax amount. Okay, so if we take that transaction now and we post it through the system, that will update your general ledger and your purchase ledger with those values and produce you a posting report, so that's what we'll just see on the edit list. At the end of the quarter then, the amount of partial recoverable at a variable amount is known to us. So we're able to go to the VAT allocation, and this lives within a routine inside financial. So if we go to financial partial VAT allocation window, we're able to say we would like to analyze the partial recoverable variable tax detail. We're going to put that into month end June batch. And then here we can specify a date range of transactions we want it to go and look at. We can enter a recoverable rate, so I'm going to enter 10%. 10% of the VAT we can recover. And we've also got a new feature in the latest version of Advanced VAT here, where we can set the recovery journal posting date to use the original date, the original document date of the invoice, or the date it was posted, that invoice was posted on the purchase ledger. Depends how you close your periods as to how you want this journal to be reflected inside your general ledger, hence the reason for that new option. So if I press the recover process, it goes through and it will find my invoice, and it will see that that has partial VAT on it. So it will create a journal for me, which I can look at here. So here's my journal. So what is it doing? It's taking £18 out of my variable VAT pot account, which is where we posted it to from the invoice, and it's posting £18 back to the original expense account. That was the supplies allocated account. So that is non-recoverable VAT. So it needs to go back to the original expense account. The recoverable portion, it takes that out of the pot and it posts it into my VAT control account in here. And that's the 10% that we entered in. So the system goes to each purchase ledger transaction, works out how much VAT is recoverable based on the parameters you've given it, and posts it back to the original expense account. There's options in the system that tell it that we want to go back to the original expense account. We could also set that to post back to a non-recoverable control account if you wanted to go there, and distribute it out later across your expense accounts. Okay, so I've now got that journal on the system. and I can go through and post that batch. This means now that all my ledgers are correctly allocated, and I can run the standard VAT reports to get my data out. Just wanted to show you briefly the financial reports, so the advanced VAT report that comes out. So here's our VAT Reconciliation Report. And I'll just do it for all transactions. So we can see all the transactions here. So the report itself is at tax detail ID level. So I can see my fully recoverable. I've got a couple of vouchers coming through here for all sorts of items. The net amount, the tax amount, and that 100% of that was recovered. For my non-recoverable, I've got two transactions here. I can see that the tax amount was £20 on there, but the actual recovered tax was zero, value 0%. My partial recoverable fixed is all 5%, and my partial recoverable variable, this transaction here posted in the previous quarter was 5%. This transaction posted in this quarter is 10%. So overall, I've been able to recover 7.5%. And in total, of all my transactions within the business, I can recover 85% of my total purchases throughout the period I've asked it to process here. Like I say, that recovery report, that can be produced at any time in the month to show you where you are, what percentages you got recovered, what values you haven't yet recovered, etc. Okay, so that's just a quick run through using the purchase ledger of advanced VAT. Just go back to the system and we can have a look at a relatively new feature we put in that which we call an invoice-only option. So if we just go to financial setup, system setup. VAT reporting, under the advanced VAT setup options window here, we've got an option called enable invoice-only VAT calculations. This is where we're able to tell the system that when a purchase order comes in, that purchase order itself should be just treated with standard VAT. It's only when we come to invoice or shipment invoice that we need to enable the VAT calculations. So how does that work in practice? If we go to purchasing and go to purchase order entry, I've got an invoice here that's come through. Actually, this one's come through from eRequest. So inside the detail, I can see that it was requested by Maggie, and it was some promotional gift key rings, 30 of them on system, at 30 of them at a unit cost of £2 each. They're being posted to a general ledger account, which I know is a partial recoverable tax percentage. So the purchase order that's gone out to the Squire is asking for 30 key rings, £2 each, £60, and he's going to charge us £12 worth of VAT. Total value of the purchase order is £72. When I come to receive and invoice that purchase order, I click on receive and purchase. It asks me, do I want to receive yes? It opens up the receiving transaction entry window here. The promotional gifts, you'll see we've got an extra line on here with a few more details. There's the account number it's posting to, 100,6220, and it's partial recoverable fixed, 20%, 5% recoverable. So the totals show me that although the net value of the purchase was £60, £11.40 of that is non-recoverable VAT. That's the 95%. The actual recoverable portion is only 60 pence, but the invoice total is still £72. Yeah. Looking at the analysis, I can see how that plays out in the distribution entry window. And it's another new feature inside the system that window here is the standard distribution window that has been set to read only, so you can't change the distributions. But as we move the product forward and we look at implementing these kind of transactions with multi-dimension analysis and analytic accounting, the ability to do that inside this window means we can use analytic accounting features. You'll see it's also linked in with all the other new features of Microsoft Dynamics GB 2013, such as attachment processing, etc. So, if I just give it a credit number, invoice 1236 and a batch CS 1006. Producing the edit list. Shows us, if I just scroll up there a bit, the transactions or the general ledger codes that's been posted to, and the VAT that's been posted to there. Okay. So when I go and post that batch and that receipt, all the accounting and the VAT processing will be correct. Okay. So just about come to the end of our 30 minutes. So I'd like to thank you for your attention today and having a look at the advanced VAT product. We have the ability within our go-to seminar to be able to take questions. So if anybody's got any questions, please, you can enter them into the system, and there'll be people monitoring those to be able to come back to you with answers on the product. Your account managers also will be able to organize if you need more specific demonstrations of the product or have any questions that you need answering. They'll also be able to come back to you and answer those questions for you. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and I'll just leave the session open for a little while just in case anyone wants to ask any questions, and then we'll close it shortly. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.